3 things that I wish I knew as a beginner knitter. Number 1, pull your yarn to the front of your work when you're doing a purl stitch. This might sound explicit to some people, but when I was learning to knit, I had 2 people and a set of instructions trying to show me how to do a purl stitch, and at no point explicitly telling me that before I stick the needle into the stitch, I had to pull the yarn from the back of the work, where it was left after a knit stitch, to the front of the work before I started a purl stitch. This meant that I was constantly making yarn overs accidentally with no idea how I was managing it, and yeah, it took me watching YouTube videos about 10 years later before I finally cracked a purl stitch. Number 2 is to learn to read your knitting from the start. So this sounds maybe a little bit complicated on the surface, but it comes down to this simple piece of advice. Learn how to do a stockinette stitch first, then go to garter. Now, some people are going to turn around to me and say, okay, but for garter stitch, I only need to learn how to knit, whereas to do stockinette stitch, I need to knit and purl. But trust me, it's worth the investment. If you do your knitting in garter stitch, so you knit your first row, you knit your second row, repeat, then you're not going to properly see how a knit stitch forms a V-shaped loop in your knitwork. Whereas if you do a stockinette stitch where you're doing a knit stitch one way and a purl stitch the other, then what you're going to really see is how your knitting V-stitches appear and then how your purl bumps appear. So trust me, it's worth time and effort to learn how to knit and purl from the beginning. Try stockinette and you'll see that you'll be able to read your knitting. Then when you try something like garter stitch or something more complicated like seed stitch, you'll be able to see where your purl bumps are and where your knitting and V-stitches are, because you've already learned that yourself with stockinette. And finally, number 3, frogging is okay. When I was learning how to knit, if I was about, let's say halfway through an item and I realized that I didn't like it, I felt like I had wasted so much time that I had to keep going and finish the item anyway. Well, guess what? If I finish the item, I've wasted more time and I've wasted the yarn, because now I can't use that yarn for an item that I like. So yeah, frogging would have absolutely been better. It would have saved me time, it would have saved my yarn, and I would have just been able to accept that I learnt some things whilst I was knitting it, even if I undid that work eventually. And this brings me to kind of part 2 of this, which is that frogging is a tool for fixing your work. Because let's say you're partway through an item and you've made a mistake and you realise that mistake is 3 lines back. Now, if you have learned how to read your knitting, you will know how to insert your needle in a way that catches those stitches. So you'll be able to find a row, pick the stitches onto the needle, and then pull the yarn back, and they will get caught on the needle, and your mistake will have gone, but you won't have had to undo all of your work. Frogging is actually a tool, a very valuable one, so learn to be okay with it. So there you have it, 3 things that I wish I knew as a beginner knitter. 1, how to purl properly. 2, how to read your knitting, so make sure that you practice knits and purls in order to do that and read your work properly. And 3, if you can read your work properly, you don't have to be afraid of frogging anymore.